Right, a very good morning to you all. I hope you're all good on this Saturday, the 15th of February 2020. I'm here to give you a new look video forecast. Got some new software which now allows me to actually display my screen as well as a little picture of me in the bottom corner. So yeah, some bonuses is that you don't get to see my big ugly mug in front of you. You also now get to see the charts that I'm looking at that actually put some meat behind the bones of the forecasts, and the image is perfectly still. So yeah, let's hope that you all enjoy it and you get some value from it. Let's have a look at the charts. Well, media have been talking about Storm Dennis over the last few days, and here he is at the moment. You can see this area of white. It's a very deep area. Two areas of low pressure in close proximity in the North Atlantic between really just to the southeast of Greenland and to the south of Iceland. 930 millibars, extremely deep area of low pressure, this one. And so, yeah, there's no doubt that this will be controlling our weather for the next couple of days. Let's have a look at the Met Office warnings. They've been out now for a couple of days, and you can see there's an array of warnings, wind and rain. I'm going to start with the wind. So that's in operation really from, I believe, about 10 o'clock this morning, and that runs through to tomorrow. So here we go, a Met Office warning, a yellow one this time, valid from 10 o'clock today until midday tomorrow. So what to expect is the usual hazards, obviously the impacts to the roads, high-sided vehicles, potential loss of power, and also obviously some coastal routes could be affected by spray. Fortunately, this week the tides aren't as high, so I don't think it's going to be too much of an impact with regard to that. Here we go. Here's the detail with the winds. It talks about strong winds in association with Storm Dennis are expected on Saturday and Sunday across many parts of England and Wales. The strongest winds are likely to be on Saturday afternoon and evening, with a lull for a time overnight before increasing again early tomorrow. Gusts of 50 miles an hour are expected inland and around the coast, especially in the west and the south. Gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour are likely. The strong winds will be accompanied by heavy rain at times, leading to particularly poor driving conditions. So here you are. This is where you see the tick. So it's becoming very likely. The impact's not quite as high this weekend with the wind as they were last weekend. If you recall, we were actually in this amber box, and then on the day of the event or just before, we ticked up to here. So yeah, very likely it's going to be an event, but the impact, fortunately, this time won't be as high. Let's have a look at the rain. I think this does have more of an impact for parts of the UK. So this is the warning for rain. This is in effect from midday today through until 9 o'clock tomorrow night. And again, it just talks about homes and businesses potentially being flooded, delays and cancellations to trains and buses, spray, and possible power cuts, as you would expect. Running through the further details, so it talks about spells of heavy and prolonged rain expected to affect parts of England and Wales over the weekend, with around 20 to 40 millimetres of rain likely to fall widely, with 50 to 80 likely across parts of northern and southern England. Excuse me. Over the higher ground of Wales, 100 to 120 millimetres of rain is possible in a few locations. This rain is expected to fall across areas already wet from recent rainfall. So here you go. This is where the tick sits in this time. So the rain, yes, it's more likely that should the risk be realised, it's going to be a high impact event, but currently the confidence isn't quite as high. So we're still in the yellow warning bracket. Let's have a look at the impacts now specifically for Kent, because that doesn't really tell the whole story. I'm going to start off looking at the wind gusts. So here we go. This is thanks to metdesk.com. It's at midday today, that's Saturday. We're generally looking at gusts around about the low to mid 40s. Move that through to 6 o'clock tonight. You can see that the wind really will be starting to whip up by then. Gusts generally in the sort of the low to mid 50s. And interestingly, there's a gust of 66 miles an hour close to London there. So that's something that just needs to be watched, I think. We go through the overnight period, just a windy night, really. Gusts high 50s into the low 60s. 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, you can see that the strongest of the winds by that stage are just along the south coast. by the time we get to midday, we're back up to 62. And I think this is where we were talking about, certainly in the Met Office, of this lull. So if you do get up in the morning and the winds have subsided a little bit, that don't get lulled into a false sense of security. I think there will be another peak in those winds late morning, around about noon, up into the low 60s again before we actually push it all out the way tomorrow um, afternoon and into the evening. Let's talk about the rain. This is the other part of the story. So if I just push across to the rainfall precipitation amounts, here we go. So as you can see at the moment, here's good old Kent sitting here. So the greenish stuff is light rain, drizzle, nothing of any consequence. Numbers over to the west are the amount of rainfall in millimetres expected to fall in a 3 hour period. So already this morning you'll see that the rain is falling over parts of Wales where that warning is in effect for the most rain. Just follow it through. So midday, Kent's still essentially dry. 3 o'clock this afternoon, some rain will be starting to edge into the western and central parts of the county and towards the northwest. By 6 o'clock this evening, generally a damp evening with light rain, drizzle, and just a couple of millimetres of rain in a 3 hour period, nothing too significant. And overnight it remains that way as well. So just a lot of light rain and drizzle through the course of the day. Certainly no hints of anything exceptional in terms of rainfall events for the county. Overnight, so we go through the early hours, you start to see this rain area again pepping up across South Wales, and this is in association with the cold front. And I think this is what's going to then move forward across the county of Kent tomorrow, giving us a particularly wet day. So that's midnight tonight. This is 3 o'clock in the morning, so this rain is gathering to the northwest. Here in Kent, we're still cloudy, we've still got light rain and drizzle, but obviously by then the winds will be strong. This is where you see it closing in tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, the rain continues. The bulk of the rain is still across South Wales and the Midlands. But as we move through the afternoon, certainly the morning, by 9 o'clock in the morning, it's raining everywhere, a steady 5 or 6 millimetres of rain. Those 3 hour period. Tomorrow lunchtime, it's still raining, 3 to 4 millimetres of rain. It peps up in the afternoon. This is where we have the potential sort of wave on the front. So it continues in a very wet theme. It's not until we get towards tomorrow evening that rain does then start to push out of the way. And I think by midnight, we'll all be clear. So that was the 3 hour slots of the rainfall. Let's put some 24 hour precipitation amounts. This gives you an idea of the rain that's likely to fall in a 24 hour period. So in the 24 hours from 6 o'clock this morning to 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, you can see certainly that's where all the action's taking place over Wales, up to 100 millimetres of rain in some of those areas around the Brecon Beacons. But certainly here in Kent, today we escaped most of the rain as was seen in those charts. So 6 to sort of 10, maybe 15 millimetres of rain is likely to fall between, as I said, 6 o'clock this morning and 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Let's move it forward another slot. This takes us through to the period 6 o'clock tomorrow morning to 6 o'clock Monday morning. And you can see that's where most of the rain is going to fall. It's going to be tomorrow. So a typically wet period of 18 to 20 millimetres for most of the county, which when you add that up over the couple of days, you're going to probably be in the sort of the about the 30 millimetre range. So certainly it will have some impacts. Some flooding will be possible because obviously the ground will be saturated. So that's a look at Kent this weekend. Let's just now have a little look at the trends going forward. Always quite nice to look at our ensembles. For those of you that aren't familiar with this, what we have is, I'm using the GFS here, basically, when the runs are set every, I think it's 4 times a day. We get off the same starting data point and really we look at how the model will then run. If the lines are tightly packed and close together, there's high confidence, but naturally, as you move further and further away, obviously things start to diverge. And then when you start to see this mass of lines, spaghetti, call it what you like, that's where the confidence is low. So looking at this weekend, you can see obviously wind spikes will be high over the course of the weekend. We die off a little bit, 17th, 18th, but it's still breezy and then obviously there's no real confidence. Have a look at some precipitation over the next few days. Well, once again, here's the spike, 16th to the 17th, so that's this weekend. And then you can see really through the remainder of this week, it's like a showery period of weather coming up. So we're still not dry and certainly not settled. And longer term, looking at the temperature trends, well, you can see very mild this weekend. Temperatures in the 10 to 13 bracket. We cool off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So yeah, some cooler temperatures back to near a normal. But you can see next weekend there is a trend, certainly for a time, bringing some really quite mild air again. Later on in the month, just a hint that things might start to cool down a bit. So really, that's the story. I hope you've enjoyed the forecast and found it useful. I'll be back tomorrow evening with a video forecast on a similar vein, looking at the week ahead. But in the meantime, I think the summary is yes, we're going to have we're going to have a windy weekend. Certainly, the winds are going to be nowhere near as impactful as they were last week. Probably the rain, 30 millimetres, just something we need to be aware of. Thanks for watching, and ciao for now.